Look when
It was just sciatic nerve in my back yesterday helping my kid get in his room. Cal was making fun of me.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Don't see any changes to our agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously. All right, Chantel.
Indigent Services, Chantel at Ulu. I have one case for you today. It's case number 2022-0027. It's an application submitted for cremation expenses to Cornelison Funeral Home in the amount of $1,200. The deceased is a 49-year-old female. She was homeless and Bannock County resident, was not a veteran. With the information that we obtained from the state's website, it does appear that the deceased would have met criteria for assistance through the program. Bannock County does appear to be the last resource for payment, and there were no responsible parties located for reimbursement of this request.
Mr. Chair, case number 202-20027, I make a motion we approve that as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously.
Get the cap off.
Thank you.
Chantel.
All right, next, Shanda.
Shanda Crystal, Purchasing and Economic Analyst. I do have two items before the board today. I'd like to start with number 2 in hopes that Carol will be able to join me for the conflict public defense discussion. The second item then is a request to purchase a printer, copier, scanner for our commission office. As you know, as we've split human resources down the hall, a lot of the resources have been split between the two, and it's worked phenomenal. The one that hasn't worked so well is sharing a single printer with half of our office at the other end of the hall. We requested 6 different proposals from 3 companies here in town for review and look to see what would fit the best needs that we had for the commissioner's office. Of those 3, then we started talking to IT about their experience with the different models and things like that we were looking at. So we got some guidance from IT on what they would kind of steer us towards, what they would recommend hasn't worked really well in their experience in the past. And from those discussions and talking with Braden and Christy and I, we would like to recommend the attached bid from Valley Office for a Sharp copier, scanner, printer, faxer, the whole 9 yards.
Dishwasher.
Yeah.
This is
Coffee maker, right?
this one we're going to keep. This one's going to our office,
Correct.
and this is one we're going to use for Board of Equalization for
Correct.
the. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for the more strenuous part of our year where we have things that we have to print and do that. It prints faster than the one we currently have, though Human Resources would be thrilled with the slower one that they're getting in exchange.
Okay.
So, there are a couple different options if we would like to move down this road. You see there that we can lease this unit. There would be 9 months left out of the fiscal year. It'd be just over $1,100 if we'd like to do that. Christy and I feel that we can find that within our current commission budget to cover. I always feel more comfortable straight purchasing items. So that's another option there. And the $6,400 that's on there, we didn't feel we could find within our current B budget, though we do have some savings in A that we could potentially request and move from A budget to B budget to cover that cost.
What is our, outside of Board of Equalization, what is our monthly copy volume? Do you know what that number is by chance?
I don't know. When they looked at what we had on there now, it's about 125,000 copies. And we are guessing, though we couldn't remember when we got it, that it was probably 5-ish years old would be our guess.
So we're doing approximately 20,000 copies or prints a year?
Right. And we are, as all offices, right, going more digital, right? We do more scanning and saving to those drives, the agreement drives, things like that, that have worked out really great for us. But there are still things that we work with the public, BOE being one of the major ones, that we do quite a lot of printing for the public on.
That seems, outside of BOE, are we doing copies for anywhere else? Because that seems like a huge volume.
Outside of BOE.
Well-
So to me, the next biggest one would be like our agendas and things like that when we do meetings.
You also have any of your taxes, like all your notifications have to go out to the public under state law. So anytime people request tax hardship requests, so all those that come in, all of those, we have to send something out to them and say, either it is or it is not, and this is why. So that's why I say is you get these batches of printings that it's not, Brown actually looked at it, it's not worth it to actually take it to Tobert and have like somebody just print them for us. They would
Right.
charge us an arm and a leg.
If you were using, if HR was a part of the office too, that would increase your volume also.
Yeah, okay. I was just trying to figure out where all of our volume was coming from, if we were just printing just for our office, or are we printing for various departments that send stuff our way just to serve the.
We have enough stuff that we send out of there. We've always had a fairly high volume. Board of Equalization, the first 2 years I was here, we didn't have that many that we're sending out, but when we start having those
Right,
3,000 in one pop, or even last year we had 1,800 that appealed, but even though that they come and pull their appeal off, or they finish their appeal over across the street, we still have to go back and send them something that says, hey, that this is what's received. And so that's why it's been on that printer. If we figure out how to get away from that, but they won't let us just send them an email.
If that has an asset number, we could look and see what year we got it.
Yeah, it does for sure.
Okay.
I've seen it.
Yeah, if you sent that to us, we could tell you, because it might be older than 5 years.
Oh, gotcha. All right, so we could be doing this.
I'm okay, I'm all right, I'm just trying.
That one came from Bobette's office, is where that came from. Because the commissioners had,
No, I
well,
think that we gave that one to the prosecutors when we pulled.
Bobette's,
Mhm.
and was that one the one when Bobette merged with us?
Mhm. Then we pulled that one and we gave that one to the
But,
prosecutors. office.
and that's the original one? From
Oh,
that was out at Road and Bridge?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So, yeah, it's older than 5. I've been here for 6 now. I remember we just got it when it came in though, is where it came from. I don't know, we've never had any problems with it,
Okay.
so.
Property tax exemptions would be another big one, and this year we're saying that it's online and to pull off, so that will be a reduction as well.
Well, we'll have to notify them though. Under state law, we're still required to send out in writing.
Well, we're not gonna function as an office without it.
You need
Yeah.
one.
I mean,
Yeah, no, I wasn't arguing the need, I was just kind of
It's just-
curious about the volume and where we were at. So no, I'm good. So the question is, do we pay cash or do we lease?
There might be money in county operations. Did you guys look in there?
So we didn't we felt this was a commission office purchase, so that's why we kind of stuck to 105. But there would be.
well, and I say it's a combination, because we're taking the one out of our office, putting in HR. I mean, it's a county function
Yep. I would
type
just-
deal to
I would
me.
just buy it.
So,
I could try and find money if you want me to look into it.
if you would, please, coordinate together and that's where I'm at.
Okay, I'm good with that then.
If we have the funds, let's do it. I mean,
County operations, you've got money. I
Okay.
can tell you right now.
All right.
So we could just take it out at 815 in county operations.
Mr. Chair, you ready?
Yep.
All right, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the cash purchase of the copier for the Commissioner's office as presented.
we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. So there's no
That
place
is-
to sign on this. It's,
We'll let Valley Office know. They do have it in their warehouse here, and it should be installed within a couple of weeks. So we'll get that going.
good.
Yeah, do you want to come join me? So the second item I had before the board today is a continued discussion on the Conflict Public Defense Council. As you know, that original contract is terming on December 27th. That's next Tuesday, Monday. So we do need to decide how to move forward with that. HR has posted the position. I checked with them this morning. They have not yet received an application for employment. I did check with both of the letters of interest on that had put in before we had switched and pulled contract and went to employee. One of the attorneys is only interested in misdemeanors, things like that. So at this time, she is not interested in either the contract or becoming an employee. The other letter of interest is interested, could have a discussion on either. They are interested in either becoming an employee potentially or tacking on a contract. My concern with their letter of interest, the beginning of it, states that they don't mention that they have felony work. They have a couple years of practicing experience, but they are all in misdemeanor stuff so far. So I do have concerns on either contract or employment with that individual. But Mr. Trammell was going to check with current contracts that we had, and I didn't know if he was able to touch base with anybody to see if they were interested in becoming employees.
Yeah, everyone I've chatted with is not interested right now. So there's a couple I'm still waiting to hear back from. They call me.
Ryan, wasn't that?
And I talked to, one of them that I talked to said that they've all had a discussion and they know about the open position, but there's not a lot of interest in it.
Didn't you say that most of them said it was a pay issue?
Yeah, the one I talked to that specifically brought that up, that said that all of them had kind of talked about it a little bit, said that they were told what the pay grade was, but they didn't know what that meant. So I kind of gave them the pay range, what the pay grade is. And they're like, well, that wouldn't be enough to quit their private practice and come over.
Well, and after talking to Ryan, I don't think we advertised it enough, because he was talking about that we put it on our site and on the state bar, but
I didn't see it ping on LinkedIn.
It's
it
not there yet.
did. It didn't. And that's,
I mean,
He was supposed to have, I think, get with LinkedIn either yesterday or today.
he said this week.
Yeah, to get their pricing to put it up there.
yeah. See, and a lot of times what happens is whenever we post stuff, just in like, if it ever goes to like job service, LinkedIn, a lot of times they'll grab your job service jobs and put them in there, but they don't do anything special for them. But yeah, I haven't seen that one or others. I can almost guarantee if something like that pops up on LinkedIn or one of the major sites that you'll get. I mean, we've done it for every position that we've went through. That's where we've gotten applications from that actually meet, you know. So
I just don't see a lot of attorneys getting on Bannock County's website to look for a job,
So,
honestly.
in this discussion, I talked with both Penny Manning and Christina Glasscock in Bonneville County and Twin Falls County. And Christina especially, they're in the exact same boat that we are. They're looking at the same thing that we are, hiring in-house and struggling to get applications over there. It's just a tough time.
Jason, is our advertised salary comparable to what?
Ours is a little bit lower, but it's, I mean, I would say comparable, but a little bit lower. I can't remember exactly what they paid.
But there seems to be, I don't want to say an attorney shortage, but a lack of attorneys applying for positions right now. I don't know why.
well, that's the other thing too of why we need to make sure it goes out to like your LinkedIn or whatever, because what's happening is we're not getting penetration over into some of the bigger markets, the Boise market, some of those areas. It's funny because like you're always talking about like young attorneys coming out that have clerked for 2 years or, you know, and now they're looking for whatever they're looking for. And you know, as you start looking at where would you want to go to hang out, pay your student loans off for a while, I wouldn't want to go hang a shingle and necessarily be on my own. I'd rather go.
And that is our most recent hire. They were straight out of law school for the public defense office, right, with no experience. So we did get one, but we can't have that for the conflict because, right, they don't have an office support. They need to be able to practice felonies and all of that. They've got to have experience.
Yeah. I'd say try and get it posted again and let's see, come back to it.
And the individual that you have, let's at least look at that application.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I don't know what their experience is because we haven't looked at anything, so let's at least look at it. I mean,
Well, and let's get some more of the lawyers looking at it too. I mean,
You know, we can, I'm sure if we met with Brian and Dave to look at the, I guess without sharing more than you can share, is it a name that we've discussed in here previously?
So he is an old employee
Oh,
of ours.
yeah.
So we would have, we'd be able to talk to the department head. He did work for Dave. So we'd have lots of information on, it's just his experience level has me concerned when they've got to work solo.
well,
So my conversation with him yesterday, right, he was interested in having a discussion on either moving forward with the contract or becoming an employee. I did tell him to hold off on applying until we had this discussion, but I can contact him, right, and have him officially submit to Human Resources an application.
Well, and I think that actually, if we're hesitant, instead of hiring him as an employee, we could hire him as a contract to just give some, I mean, at least that gives us an out, instead of hiring somebody
Yeah.
and then having to go through that. I don't know,
And Mr. Chair, I do remember from previous meetings on this, when Dave was here, he mentioned this applicant and said that he was willing to mentor, or was mentoring and willing to continue to work with them as they kind of develop their practice, and needed experience, particularly in felony criminal. So there may be some opportunity whether you want to pursue contract and with the idea of converting it to employment after a probation or.
The problem I have is that if we're setting it up as a conflict office where we're not supposed to have any conflict, how do you mentor or go through somebody
Yeah.
if you're supposed to not be
Just couldn't be any case specific. It would just
Okay.
be on the practice of being
lawyer?
a public defender. And certainly I'd ask Dave and Brian to weigh in. That's a non-legal example, but certainly firewalling any case-specific discussion and really having a separation of this is legal education as opposed to guidance on strategy on any particular case.
Well, I would agree with that. I think we need to have a meeting with Dave here also and have that, bring that application and have an executive session, so we talk about the individual and see what we want to do to offer.
And Mr. Chair, I appreciate the commission taking it up now. I know timing is important on this with the current contract expiring before the end of the month. Our health conditions have been such that we've resumed jury trials. So we've had jury trials last week, and we expect a very busy January, February. So as much as we can do to keep any gap as we return from the holidays, the current contract expires and we're onboarding either a new contractor or new employee. We're going to have some jammed calendars, and if as much as we can to keep them continuing these, we already know there's going to be some built-in because whether we hired this person or any other person, they're going to be coming in and they will have not had a chance to really talk to their clients yet. But anything we can do to kind of keep this at the forefront of the commission's agenda so we don't go with any
Yes.
significant gap.
And on to go on your coattails a little bit with that, both the current conflict PDs that are leaving at the end of this month have expressed a willingness to help us out to keep the clients that they have already and then just not get new ones. And so whoever comes in will just get new ones and they would just finish their cases out. Specifically one, and the other one said that they'd be willing to help out too, but they've been known to vacillate, so I could go and confirm with them. But if the commission wants to approach that too, I can try to hammer some things out with them and get back with the commission. So they're still keeping everyone they have,
Well,
just to finish their cases out, and then whoever we hire would just pick up new cases.
I think we definitely want to do that. I mean, we don't want to just throw somebody in there with, give them 40 cases
Yeah.
like we have had in the past with the
Like
other
we like to do.
problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could talk to them about like what the cost would be?
Yeah, it would have to go to like an hourly contract or something, like just to finish out the cases that they have. So we'd still.
Would you,
What is the hourly rate now?
85?
Okay.
For a non-contract public defender who's appointed, we have an admin order that says it's 85 an hour.
Okay.
We've been-
I mean, that's,
But I can call and confirm with both of them and see what,
If
and
you would,
look at their
please.
contract and the terms, but that might be the best option, is to have them hold on to what they have now and when we bring someone else, they won't get assigned a new client after their contract ends, but they'll just.
honestly, I wouldn't mind. We're scheduled for next Tuesday. I mean, if you and Dave was available, if we could put an executive session on there and just talk about this individual, at least we're moving as quick as we can.
Brian, when you're thinking of retaining existing contracts for pending clients, is it splitting up the contract money? Because the new person as they come in, they'll have a very light caseload because they'll only get new. Is that kind of like splitting the money and paying part of it to keep the cases going? And then, of course, I don't know if the new person would sign for less than the monthly average. I'll leave that to you to hammer out. It just was bouncing in my mind.
That was just an option they gave, so we don't have when we're waiting to find someone and hire someone, we don't have
Clients
hanging out in the air. However, we have to, it'll be new, so we'll have to kind of balance and what's going on, probably week to week.
Let's see if we can get Dave here next Tuesday and get to have an executive session.
Okay.
Any thoughts?
No, that's, yeah, I mean, that's just where we're gonna have to go. We gotta get in.
We just gotta be able to make a movement on that Tuesday.
Yeah.
Whether we go with the hourly with these guys or higher. But I do kind of like let's put him on a 1-month contract, see how everybody feels about things, and then that gives us time to put the pieces in place for bringing him in-house.
Well, and we gotta get pushing on our recruitment process. We just can't, I mean, when we start throwing nets, we gotta throw it as big as possible, as fast as possible.
Well, and I agree. So, and right now is not a good time to go
No,
fishing.
nobody's looking. Everybody's
So
skiing.
that buys us some time to fish a little bit more. So
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Christie?
See, I'm learning how to be patient.
Supervisor, Bannock County Comptroller. I just have for you an amendment with the Better Technology contract. This is for our original implementation. We had some leftover conversion monies that we don't need to use for conversions. So we have asked them to convert those over to training hours. It should give us another 44 hours of training. If we don't use it, we don't spend the money. But at least we've got the abilities to have it covered within the contract.
Okay.
So that's all we're doing.
Is there a head count limitation on those hours? Like, could you have 10 people per hour? Is it?
It's just whatever we need training on. So we still have some follow-up training we've got to do. We've got at least this, and this is just on the finance side. So on the finance side, we've got some follow-up training for 1099s. We've got the vendor self-serve training that we're going to have. I've got my financials training that we're going to have. Depending on how all of those things go, we're also going to have
Also reports.
reports that we've got to have caught up. This is only good for, I think it said 6 months from when you sign it. But and we can always do more training. We'll just have to pay for it, but this is just what's built within the contract. So in the contract price, Brian reviewed this last week and did not have any concerns.
Any questions?
Nope.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the amendment as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right, thank you. All right, Hal.
We may be a little bit ahead of schedule.
Could we fire up one of those computers and bring up on the monitor exactly the piece of property where we're gonna?
Are you not ready? You want to wait 5 minutes?
Well, I don't know if the applicant, the applicant's here, meaning TJ Budge potentially, as well as the people that,
So this is set up that we talk with staff
okay,
and staff only.
okay, that's fine.
Is that correct,
I
Brian?
wanted to make sure that if
And it's on the record, so everything to consider was
If
what
they need to be
planning,
here.
development.
if there were any questions that were going to be asked either of the City of Lava and their appeal, as well as the people that have the application in
Okay,
place.
but from what I understand,
Yep.
we can take this information that is in our packet and that's all we
If
can
not, I can make Brian
talk
do it.
about.
That's
Correct,
perfect.
Brian?
I was just gonna have somebody.
I am good. I am good.
Yeah, well, if you could just bring up like planning the Google Earth or
And
something.
Mr. Chair, so
and post
specifically in the
where
ordinance,
we're
it
at.
says what the commission can consider.
I'm a visual type
It
person.
says
I'll bring
you can
something.
consider such findings, reports, minutes, comments, and recommendations as are forwarded to you by the Planning and Development Council and rendered.
We got a big giant one behind you, so we're good there.
So what's in our packet
Yeah.
is how we make our decision.
Okay. It's a public meeting, but no public comments.
Randy, what 100 block is that? 286. Thank you.
Okay, everybody ready?
Yeah.
Not quite. Or you want to?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up. I had it open and my computer closed. I'm pulling up all of our own planning and zoning ordinances so I can follow along.
Mr. Chairman, may we ask a question?
No, this is not a public hearing.
That's an appeal, though. And the City of Lava is bringing the appeal. Don't we have a chance to present the appeal?
Not according to our ordinances.
Thank you.
I don't agree with them, but this isn't the first time that,
There's a process that's going to get fixed sooner or later, and this is one that causes problems.
Please be aware then that potentially whichever way this goes, that we will present a reconsideration request to the county. Thank you.
Yep. Any,
Usually does.
that's a lot.
Thank you.
Pull up the specific parcel.
On Google Earth, just punch in the address.
Yeah.
I've got it up here.
Or if you're good at orient. Yeah, there you go.
What's the address?
Yeah. It's not a public hearing, but open to the public.
One second, 287 South 6 West Street.
There it is. Oh, no.
Flagler Springs. Yep.
Yeah, don't go to Utah.
Don't go to Heber, even though I love Heber.
There we go. All right, there we go. Winner, right there.
That's it.
Yep, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we know where we're talking.
okay. All right, as legal counsel says, this is open to the public, but it's not a public hearing. This is an appeal of the council's decision on a conditional use permit. That took place on 11/17/2021. An appeal was filed with planning on 11/26/2021 by the City of Lava. Hal?
Over and above the information that's in the packet, would you like me to present a brief synopsis of what took place? And then if you have questions for me based upon your homework in the packet? Okay. The Jessies, that is their last name, applied for a conditional use permit for a campground on the said parcel. The council heard that conditional use permit application on September 15th. In that conversation, there were concerns from the City of Lava as well as other patrons that live adjacent and across the street from this parcel in the City of Lava about their concerns for a campground. In the process, council came down to two items. One, to seek out annexation request or connect to city sewer and water, or the third one was basically all of the above. In the process, the Jessies, and then they tabled it.
Who tabled it?
The council, okay? And then that was upon the Jessies to then go and work with the City of Lava. They were asked to report back. In the conversation, the City of Lava was asked by the council how long it would take to consider annexation and some of the things that were discussed in that meeting. And the City of Lava requested 9 months to a year, and the council said that's not acceptable. This will be done in 30 days or 60 days. I believe the date was 30 days. It took longer than that before it could be then placed back to be quote-unquote continued. So then they presented their findings on November 17th, their conversations with the City of Lava. We asked them to connect to city sewer and water. To the best of my knowledge, I believe that they were denied because the city wanted them to annex. In the process of that conversation of annexation, I believe that the Jessies were frustrated because it was, in their words, it was made apparent to them that they were not going to get a zoning that would allow them to do what they bought the piece of property for if they were annexed. At that point, in November 17th meeting, there was discussion, there was arbitration, back and forth conversation. At that point, the applicant had hired TJ Budge, local land use attorney here. In TJ's conversation with the council, he's made the comment that This land currently falls under Bannock County's jurisdiction, and as much as we would like to make exceptions, you have to rule upon what the ordinance says. And at that point, council, for lack of a better description, voted 4-1, 4 in favor, 1 against. And at that point, we had conversation, or staff had conversation with the City of Lava, and then they filed for an appeal, and we find ourselves here this morning to discuss what has occurred in these previous 2 meetings, as well as the position that was rendered.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
So was there a formal meeting with the City of Lava? Did they get agendized and go before a planning and zoning board or anything, or was this just general conversations, a hearsay down at the coffee shop, and we don't even have a formal decision coming from a board or?
That I do not know.
Okay. The other thing is a 22-unit RV park right there. I'm assuming city sewer is in that road right in front to the.
That is correct, in Sixth
Okay, so
West.
it falls inside the 300-foot rule then.
It does, and that's why the discussions were held about them having conversation on whether or not they would or would not be allowed to connect.
So this whole project then is based on whether the City of Lava will allow them to hook up their sewer line and use the City of Lava sewer.
No, it is not.
Well, because they wouldn't be able to put a,
If they're formally denied, they have gone to the legwork with engineering for a community water system and septic tank and drain field.
but they haven't had a formal hearing yet with the City of Lava. Nobody's had a formal, that we know of.
Not that I know of.
So the City of Lava didn't deny them on their agenda, but didn't allow them to be on their agenda, or didn't do it in a formal hearing.
If I may, there are 2 people in the audience that could answer that question. One is the city planner, and the other is one of their council members.
Mr. Chairman, if we
Mr.
could
Budge just walked in.
ask a probing
As
question.
a comment, Commissioner Huff just noted that Mr. Budge has entered the room, and he could answer questions as well.
Budge has entered the room.
And my apologies, I was not at the second meeting because I was dealing with illness that particular evening.
Yeah, I just need to know if it was up. Okay, I need a yes or no. Has there been a formal meeting, either with planning and zoning or the city council of Lava, where a applicant has made petition to come before you?
On behalf of the City of Lava, the answer is no.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you.
I don't think
That's,
that question was understood properly.
They came to us and requested connection to city water.
in a formal meeting.
It was on the agenda, yes.
Okay.
But there was no application for any use approval.
But they did come to a formal meeting.
They came to a
and I
form,
asked-
all right. All right, let's time out there and let's stop, because like I said, we're in this weird how our ordinances work.
There are 2 statements that are being confused. One is a formal request for annexation, and the second was the request to connect to city water and sewer. You have 2 answers.
Okay.
First
So
one was,
let me give a clarification. And was there a formal request to hook up to the city sewer that came before either planning and zoning or the City of Lava Council? Yes, sir.
We had an agenda item to approve or deny access to city water.
And you denied?
We denied. We had a policy that, for example, the Lava Low subdivision, we granted access to water and sewer based on a consent basis.
Okay.
It wasn't a formal request to annex to the city.
All right, that's all. That's what I needed to know then. Okay, I'm good. I'm good for just a second. I've
This is
got to
like
do some
deja
reading.
vu.
Deja vu all over
Because
again.
it seems like just down the street, we were having a similar conversation about 6 months ago.
that is correct.
So, I guess my main question as I went through this is there's some permanent units. They say that they're portable, but they're still permanent units.
They will, by code, they will not be allowed to be placed other than on permanent foundations.
Some of
So the quote-unquote, the tiny homes that are shown, they will be placed on permanent foundations.
So,
So half of the campground is for lack of a better description, of small cabins, and the other are RV spots for
So, question,
pull out.
to follow up. How many square feet does a tiny home have?
I believe they're somewhere around 400 square feet.
So they're bigger
plus or
than
minus.
200 square feet, which is an auxiliary structure.
Correct.
So they have water, plumbing, and electrical inside of them.
That is correct.
Does our ordinance allow us to split properties or mixed multi-use in that current zoning?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay.
And that was my question is, if we was just putting homes here, because these are on a permanent foundation, would this fit within our current ordinance?
There's question to study. That is a valid question that I don't have an absolute answer to.
So that leads me to my second question. With the new category of tiny homes, do we need to look at our ordinance and maybe address that? Because tiny homes, I don't believe are meant to be on a foundation.
Tiny homes are only under state statute. We don't have anything correct in our ordinance.
Hold on 1 second, I need to look at something.
So I guess that's my question is, are we talking about dividing this property up by using terms of housing to fit this need rather than to fit within the ordinances that we have?
Well, and the question that I have here, and this is something that in our ordinance, and how maybe you can help me walk through and understand this, is it where you border a city, any division, subdivision, or change in use, the city is to have first say of subdivision or division of property or change in property use is to go to the city first?
So, as a comment, none of those apply in this particular application. We're not changing use.
Because it's
It's
already
already
used.
zoned rec, and campgrounds are allowed in the recreation zone. They're not subdividing any ground. They're not splitting any ground, et cetera. It's just they're taking a piece of ground and turning it into a campground.
And it's a conditional use, so I agree with that. It's just the term of permanent buildings being put there
Okay?
Well, and then
is my question, the biggest question that I have.
It was iterated to the Jessies in the first application that it was our opinion that they should be placed on permanent foundations to meet the intent of the building code. We would need to do some study relative to state statute for tiny homes.
So then my next question would be, in a recreational zone district, it is to the discretion of the planning and zoning director, correct, to be like use around the area, correct?
Correct.
So are there tiny homes or other RV parks within the immediate vicinity of this area?
Yes.
What's the closest RV park that's there?
They're in the city of Lava proper, and they are to the east end as you start up your approach on Fish Creek Summit.
Okay, so they're at the other end, on the other side of the city.
That is correct.
That's correct.
We do have an application for a campground that is directly due north by Lisa Tolley, which has been, that conditional use permit has been granted for that campground. That is literally directly north of this property, sitting on the river, in between the river and the old highway.
Okay.
Almost directly across from the gas station convenience store and the bare piece of ground directly to the east.
So there's that fishing pond, isn't it fairly close,
It is.
that has the RV park?
The
also?
Trout Haven.
Just down the street,
It's
what I thought.
probably,
just
I don't know,
over the hill.
a mile.
That's what I thought, it
directly-
was just kind of over the hill from it, or right there close.
Yeah. So this is where we're talking, this is the trout farm.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So I have a
Same
question,
neighborhood.
though.
Yeah.
While the county doesn't regulate sewers, the city of Lava has said, no, you can't annex to this. The approval of a group system would have to be approved by Department of Health, correct?
That is
And
correct.
follow DEQ rules of sewer design.
That is correct. And same holds true for a community water system, of which the Jessies have in your packet. You'll note that there is a design for a,
But they haven't went to,
Community
they have
system.
not went to DEQ for approval.
no.
And so that it would still be there, and if the city of Lava changed their mind and said, we want to let you in on our sewer system, and we don't care if you're there, whether we annex you or not, DEQ would probably have to let them do that first, because state law says that if a sewer system is available, you have to go to the sewer system first,
Unless you're denied.
unless you're denied.
At which point, that's why we're here. Now, if you approve, then it would be the responsibility of the Jessies to then go do applications to those respective jurisdictions, meaning Health Department and Department of Environmental Quality for a community water system. And if they were denied on either of those two, then the Jessies don't have a project.
Yeah.
But reading through this packet, if they were annexed into the city of Lava, the adjacent zoning does not allow this project to go,
Yep.
from what I read in the packet.
See, this is the issue that we run into, is Lava's been spot zoned. So Lava and a lot of the land issues and where it sits.
So one of the
This
items
is,
that
this is
was,
the problem that we run into, is that we have zoning that we're talking about commercial, residential, and a bunch of other stuff all thrown into it. As I look at Lava's own internal zoning maps, there's spot zoning that's occurred all over everywhere.
so real quickly, and this is one of those items that was brought up, and I have not said it. These two gentlemen in the room have heard this as well, but if you go, I believe it is a block directly to the east, you now are in a different zone in the city of Lava. And in that particular zone, a 5-story hotel is allowed with a conditional use permit. I mean, I'm just sharing relative to all of the conflicts relative to not only county ordinance, but the city of Lava's, and trying to figure out what is the best path for a private property owner that owns property in our jurisdiction.
But in the recreational zone, Bannock County, they wouldn't be able to put a motel or a hotel right there, or they would?
In the rec zone, I believe that they could.
They could. So,
Yeah.
so the tiny units, to me, is about the same as a motel. I mean, it's at just one level instead of 5 stories high.
This has been a difficult one.
See, and I really disagree with the tiny units having to be put on permanent foundations, because that is not the purpose of the tiny units.
That is correct.
Everything I've ever read, so.
The item that we could, Commissioner Huff, here's the particular issue. With a tiny home, you have no protection for your sewer and your water connections, which are permanent,
Right,
okay?
right.
And that's the reason for the
request.
the permanent foundation is for protection of water and sewer, because they anticipate to use these year-round,
Right.
See, and I hate,
as
Well,
opposed
that
to,
makes
as
sense.
opposed to other campgrounds that don't basically go all year. If I may ask a question of Mr. Banglin, the council member from Lava?
I don't have a problem with it, if it's pertinent to the discussion.
Randy, do you know if they use the KOA small log cabins year-round that Mr. Tillotson owns? Okay.
So I don't like, the small home thing, I don't like it, because a lot of times what they're trying to do is skirt the issue of, it's not on a permanent foundation, so we don't have to pay, we don't pay permits, we don't have to deal with all this, we can bring them in and out, we can move them, and we don't have to worry about inspectors and all this other stuff. And that's one of the things that I run into, is that you have a 400, 600 square foot small home, which my little house that I rented for the first 10 years that I lived in while I was in school and doing stuff here was only 700 square feet total. And I had to go through planning and zoning and building and blah, 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 blah. And so I hate it when you have some of these things, because like you said, you run into zoning issues, you run into other things. So, but the issue that comes back at hand is we have a zone, in our ordinance, Lava had the opportunity, and when they denied, then it triggers our mechanism. We do not decide sewer, water, and other things that way. We are strictly here to look at zoning. Is it authorized and is it allowed inside the zoning as it currently sits?
Commissioner, one of the frustrations in working with our office that most people don't understand is that planning and development's ordinance has two enumerated powers. One is the use of land, and the other is the division of land.
Yeah.
And we have a fair amount of frustration with people that become upset with us with the other jurisdictions that we work with in the state, specifically DEQ, IDWR, and the Health Department.
Well, you know, again, the opinions of
There's
this.
the stipulations.
Well, and the problem is that a joint system right there, I don't think that the DEQ, knowing and understanding the local individuals that will review and approve those, I don't know how it will ever make it through it, but
That's for them to decide.
that's them for decide. That's their authority. That's where it's going to be at, not with us.
So, in my mind, I'm trying to remember, again, our conversation a few months ago with the property just down the street.
Stipulations.
Did we kick that back to Lava
We did.
to approve or deny the annexation?
We did.
Lava denied that, then we came back.
They did not deny the annexation,
Oh, they did not.
but they would not grant a zone, and they
That's
wanted to
right.
place stipulations on when and how they could use their property. And
And
that
this-
was what the commission had heartburn with, was the fact that they wanted to tell a private property owner what they could not, and the times, and basically the hours that they could use their property.
Well,
See, and I see this being pretty much the same situation.
There's particular elements
I
that are
have
similar.
I have some heartburn though in our stipulations that we're putting on it, because the problem that we have is, where does it say no wood burning fire pits in our ordinance that gives us the authority to regulate that?
It does not.
Where does it say then only 4 people, adults, can use a rental? It doesn't.
The question is when you apply for a conditional use permit, the council has the opportunity to place conditions that are not in our ordinance.
Do we have a cat ordinance at the same time, and how are we going to enforce it? And that's the whole thing, as I start looking back at these, is when we start talking about these, fire is not in the purview of the county. Fire is held to the fire chiefs and the fire districts. When we start talking about people in renting, so now
But that was one of the complaints of the neighbors, was
Well,
wood burning
I
fire
under-
pits in adjacent property.
And I understand that, but are we going to regulate the piece of property next door and hold to the same standard? Because if a person that owns the property in the residential area right next to it wants to get their wood burning pits out and have a bonfire in Burning Man all of a sudden, and we're going to penalize, what are we going to do with what authority?
Brian, let me ask you, if the council has the authority to put these restrictions on, does that meet the legal definition or the legal?
So if there's a conditional use permit that's granted, the council has the authority to say, if we grant this conditional use permit, it's subject to these conditions, because if they're asking for that. So that's fairly typical when we get these conditional use permits, is if there's a discussion and they're like, okay, if we want you to do this, that normally we don't allow because of how it's zoned, or, you can do it, but we're gonna modify it with these conditions that we see are.
So they could come back with a cat ordinance, but then the question would be, how do we enforce it?
Right, so the enforcement would be under the conditional use permit, right? And so like if they were in violation of the conditions of their conditional use permit, then it could come back and they could get that revoked.
And then we have teepees again.
Well,
I was just waiting to say that, by the way. Jeff, I think
You just pulled that right out.
I was getting to that.
Yeah.
So just for the record, what we was looking at was what the board said, these are the conditions. The first one is DEQ certified water and sewer plan, or sewer and water connected to the city. No wood burning fire pits, 4 people, for adults per unit. Office to be open during common and usual times. That looks a little vague to me, but lighting to be comparable to standard subdivisions and adhere to Bannock County ordinance. 22 unit max, either property owner or their representative manager shall be on site at all times, available at all times. So I don't see the permanent foundation.
that would be an item relative to state statute for tiny homes, as well as the International Residential Code.
Okay.
Yes, we'd have to follow under that.
Okay.
That's why that, That would not be an issue of condition, Commissioner Moser. That would be a condition of the building regulations in the code.
Okay,
Okay?
all right. Questions?
Well, this is a landmine shotgun issue. Are you going to step on a landmine or shoot yourself in the face? I mean, the problem is that the ordinances for both the city of Lava and our ordinances are not clear. They're murky and they're not good. We have zoning issues in Lava that it just frustrates me because we have a block one way, a block another way. I can see in their map right now that I'm looking at, there's an island of one type and a bunch of other things, and it needs to be cleaned up, it needs to be corrected, and because we're going to continue running into this, because as we've seen in Blaha versus Ada County and other court cases, we have jurisdiction and primacy over that piece of property, not the city of Lava. Even though it may be in your urban interface or the other areas, that does not come into effect here. So it comes back to the issue of land use and zoning in private property. I have some heartburn with the conditions that they put in place because it's just another, okay, so they go burn a bunch of fire pits out there. Are you going to go pull their conditional use permit and shut them down? And I'm going to watch Mr. Budge in the back have a field day with us for something, because that's what those lawyers are paid for.
We are having gas fire pits.
Or gas fire pits, or whatever.
They're in the plan.
The city of Lava will have their attorneys, and I'm sure they're going to come after us too, and it's always a good fun time. But it comes back to the issue of private property rights. We are not here to determine sewer systems. We are not here to determine water or wells. That is held to the state. So right now, as it sits, with Lava denying the option for annexation or for any of that other stuff, or not annexation, for the use of their sewer, it's going to come back to that, is this allowed under our ordinance? It's up to the determination of the planning and zoning director for if it's a like use around it, and the city of Lava is what, a mile long? I could measure it. And so I don't know how you'd ever argue that this is not allowed in this area. So I would say right now, Mr. Chairman, that we would probably uphold the Planning and Zoning Council's decision and allow this application to go forward, and they can make application to DEQ and to the Idaho Department of Health, where the city of Lava then can express their concerns. I'm sure because this is the regulations that govern a group or planned area, they could require a level 2 nitrate study and several other things that may take years. But that is not our purview. So I would say, Mr. Chairman, that at this time I would move that we uphold the Planning and Zoning's decision and allow this process to go forward.
1 second. Al, did you have a question or a comment?
No, when you're finished, I'll make a comment. Okay.
Any comments? Commissioner Huff?
I agree with Terrell. Our zoning ordinance and the way it is right now does not prohibit this usage, and so it has come to us. And again, I side with the property owner and the opportunity to do what they need to with their property. So I'm okay with that motion.
Well, we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
When I referred to the two gentlemen from Lava, I was having a mental moment. Bruce, your last name, please?
Parker.
Mr. Bruce Parker, who is the city's planner, is one of the two gentlemen, and the other is Randy Banglin, council member. And I apologize for having a blank out when at that moment.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner, may we ask an additional question? If and when we return with a reconsideration, will we have a chance to present the material? You do not have a complete record today, and we'd like to supplement that. Would we have a chance to present our material?
I believe in you.
I would encourage you to talk to our legal counsel.
What they have to do is get on the agenda.
Happy holidays.
And then they
Have a
have to
great
speak.
vacation.
All right, thank you.
We're done. All right.
You gotta-
Our ordinance is destroyed.
those-
Here, I'll make it easy. I'm ready to just approve the
All right.
consent agenda.
For signatures only, we have November 2021 Commissioners' proceedings plus 3 quick claims. Under the consent agenda, we have residency approval and minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the signatures and consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 So, but how, so you express that there on the disclosure information of the decision mark and what they think is
Jason. Sure. Jason. Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn now.